Hello and welcome to the September legal hangout for Richardson Law Offices. This month we're going to be talking about student loan law issues. A lot of folks have problems with student loans these days. It's in the news a lot with Congress trying to pass some legislation to help people that are struggling with private student loans. And maybe lowering the interest rates on federal student loans. But it's a struggle for a lot of people who have racked up a lot of debt and are struggling to repay it. So we have some questions. Let's go to those. First question is, I have a New Jersey class loan that is in default. I co-signed it for my son. My only income is Social Security. I heard that the federal government can garnish Social Security on their loans. Can New Jersey do the same thing? No, they can't. Under state law, the Department of Education, the federal government, they can do it, but not a state entity. It's a governmental entity. Certainly offset your state income tax refund if you're in default on a student loan. A New Jersey class loan, but they can't really, well, they can garnish your Social Security income. So if that's all you have, if that's all you have in income, that's what you're living on, then they're not going to be able to garnish that. And if that's all your income is and you're putting in a bank account, they also cannot levy on it in a bank account. Just be sure not to commingle that money, put other money other than Social Security into that account. If you have direct deposit or something like that, just make sure that that bank account has only your Social Security income. Now, that doesn't solve the problem for your son, just deals with the problem with you as far as your Social Security income. So you need to consider that, but they can't reach that. Whether there are any other assets they can go after, I don't know. I'd be happy to talk to you. Just give me a call. But that's what that's the situation with Social Security and New Jersey class loans. Second question: I have a federal loan in default, and I'm trying to rehabilitate it, but they're telling me that it may take as long as 12 months to do. I thought it was only 9 to 10 months. Is this wrong? Well, short answer is I think I know what's going on with you, but yes, it can take as long as 12 months depending upon the loan type. And for those of you, for everybody else, what we're talking about here in rehabilitating or rehabbing out of default is that under the federal system with the Department of Education, if you're in default, you can talk to the debt collector and through negotiation and financial disclosure, which now is through the income-based repayment plan. Now, whatever your payment would be under IBR would be your rehabilitation payment. But the idea there is to make a negotiated monthly payment over time. And once you've made those payments, then it's rehabilitated. It gets taken out of default. The default gets taken off your credit, which is good for your credit score. And then your loan is back into place. And then at that point, you need to talk to the loan servicer about getting an affordable payment going forward so you don't end up in default again. Now, what's happening with this person, I suspect, is that they have a federal student loan through the FEL program, the Federal Family Education Loan Program. That discontinued in July of 2010, but these loans originated prior to then. What happens is a private bank will lend the money and then backed by a guarantor agency. And if there's a default, then the bank makes a claim to the guarantor agency saying it's in default. I want it to be paid. You're backing it. And they will pay a percentage of that loan in a default payment to that bank, depending upon what that bank's default rate is. So in effect, the guarantee agency of the federal government is buying back the loan. Now, when you rehab it out of default, you get it back on track, it's no longer in default. What the guarantor agency has to do then is resell that loan to a new bank. And that can take a little bit of time. So if you're rehabilitating a Stafford loan, a Graduate Plus loan, or any kind of plus loan, it's 9 payments in 10 months. With Perkins loan, it's 9 payments in 9 months. You don't get 1 month off. That's the minimum. That's what you have to do to have rehabilitated it. But you would need to continue in rehabilitation until such time as the guarantor agency is able to resell the loan. Now, it's not that difficult to sell a federally backed loan to a bank, but that can cause a delay. So I suspect that's what's going on, and that's why your loan's taking a little bit longer to rehabilitate. And so that's what's happening. Third question, I have a federal student loan in default, and I received a notice that my tax refund might be taken next year. What should I do? Well, this is the time of year where people get these notices. What's happening is if you're in default, then usually during July and August, a review is done of defaulted federal student loans to determine whether they're going to declare them offset eligible for tax refunds. And they will send you a notice of that, and you have a certain period of time to respond before that defaulted loan is certified for a tax refund offset. Check the notice, make sure of what your time period is for you to object to request a hearing. Then these during that period of time, before it certifies, you need to make arrangements to pay it. You need to get it out of default. You need to, we just talked about rehab. You need to work out either the rehabilitation of the loan or the consolidation of the loan, which is basically a refinancing to get out of default. But you need to do that before it certifies for an offset. Now, if you blow the deadline, you don't object to request a hearing, you don't work to try and get it back on track, and it's certified for offset, then really the only thing you can do at that point, you can pay off the balance, which is seldom an option really. You can try and compromise the balance. In other words, pay it off in one lump sum in a compromise amount. But you usually don't get that much of a discount on it. It's usually about a 10% discount to resolve it for about 90%. Again, you can rehabilitate the default, consolidate the loan, but they're still going to take your tax refund. The only other thing you might want to do is try and do that if you anticipate there being a refund. Talk to the tax professional and maybe wait on filing that tax return until you get the student loan straightened out. Because once you file that tax return and they say, oh, you're entitled to a refund, that refund's going to be diverted. So if you need a little bit of time to work things out on the loan, you better talk to figure out what you have to do as far as a late filing on your tax return, so you can get it straightened out before they actually take the money. So that's the approach I would take. But you need to take a look at that notice, see what your time frame is, see whether you still have time to file a response. But it's a wake-up call. And they're saying, look, you're in default, you need to pay the loan, and we're going to take your tax refund. That can be several $1,000s. The only advantage to that, really, and just a little side note, any money that is taken, there are, once it's in default, the debt collector is entitled to collection fees, which can be taken off what you pay and reduce the amount of that amount paid that actually goes to the outstanding balance on the loan, because the debt collector is taking a fee out of that money, and then a smaller portion of it then goes to pay down your balance. But with a tax refund offset, all of that goes to reduce the balance. So that's somewhat of a silver lining, I guess. Fourth question, I'm working full-time, but I've gone back to school part-time so I can eventually get a better job. Do I have to make payments on my loans right away, or is there an in-school deferment? Well, you have to be careful here, because even though an in-school deferment is automatic, it's only triggered when you're when you're attending at least half-time to that school. However they defined half-time or full-time or whatever it is, number of credit hours, it depends on the school. But find out, if you're going less than half-time, you will not get a deferment on that loan. It'll come due. And the service will be in touch with you and say, hey, you got to start making payments. I realize you're taking classes, but you're working full-time and you're going to school part-time. So what I would recommend is, if you're working full-time, then get into some sort get into a payment plan. You're at least starting to make payments, starting sooner, and at the very least shortening the repayment period, because you're starting right away. There are some income-based plans with federal loans, and I'm talking here specifically about federal loans, because that's really where you can get deferments in with New Jersey class loans, and depending on the terms of the private loan. But be aware, with federal loans, they look to see whether you're at least half-time. So you're not going to get a deferment. And also bear in mind, for those folks out there and they're listening that might be in school or have an in-school deferment, that you need to look at the type of loan or loans that you have. If you have a subsidized Stafford loan, then fine. It's deferred while you're in school full-time or at least half-time. And then when you separate from the school, either by going to less than half-time or dropping out or graduating, then you start making payments. And in that interim period of time, interest is going to accrue, but under a subsidized loan, it's subsidized by the government and they pay the interest. If it's an unsubsidized Stafford loan, then their interest is going to accrue during the deferment period. So good news is that you don't have to pay the student loan back while you're in school, but the bad news is it's continuing to accrue interest, which then capitalizes annually into your loan, and you end up having a larger loan balance. There are ways to deal with this. For example, if this was the flip side and you were in school full-time, but you were working part-time, and you don't make a lot of money from your part-time job, it might be better in the federal system if you just applied for an income-based repayment plan. And because your part-time job may not generate enough income, you could have a very low payment, even a zero payment. And that way you avoid the accrual and capitalization of interest, because interest doesn't capitalize as long as you stay in an income-based repayment plan. And you're moving towards the finish line by starting to make those payments. Now, with a New Jersey class loan, you need to look at what you're doing when you take the loan out, because there are three different ways to do a New Jersey class loan. You can do either a full-on in-school deferment where you're paying neither principal nor interest, or you pay interest only, and that way there's no capitalization, or you start paying immediately principal and interest. So you're going to want to take a look at that and see what's affordable. You may not be able to afford to start paying a full-on payment while you're in school. Your part-time job may not generate enough income to do that, but and you may just have to go to interest only. But even if you have interest only on your New Jersey class loan, you're usually dealing with then a lower interest payment and a shorter repayment period, and you're starting sooner. So you need to make some intelligent choices and decisions with these loans if you're in that situation. So that's our program for today. Our next month, in October, we're going to be talking about traffic law, New Jersey traffic law. You've gotten a ticket or you're charged with something, and you have a question. You can feel free to email it to me to steve@richardsonlawoffices.com, or you can tweet it to @SJRLaw, and I can answer that. Also, if you have some further questions about student loans and you weren't able to get them in, chances are I have the answer on my website at richardsonlawoffices.com. Just go to the student loan section, or you can go to www.studentloanbook.com and download my book for free on student loan law, and that may answer your question. It's a book called I Graduated, Now What? A Guide to Dealing with Your Student Loans. So a lot of good information in there that you might find helpful. So feel free to go to that site to download that book. So until then, have a good weekend. Have a good rest of September and into October. And I'll see you next month to talk about traffic law.